So this is a challenge that has affected every enterprise for the past 30 years, through the whole history of unstructured data or data of all types. And only now can we start to solve this problem of having some automated ability to detect sensitive information. Meena.
Yes.
I want to talk about AI security today.
But Ben, we've already done quite a few episodes on AI security.
We've done a lot of episodes on how AI can make you to have challenges of security that you have to be careful about. This particular episode, I'd love to talk about how AI can help security people and enterprises solve problems they could never solve before.
But I thought we'd already solved a lot of those classification problems before because we'd be identifying things like PII and like labeling them.
Yeah. So there's this this whole industry. There's a ton of features and a ton of products, good products, then they call them things like DLP or data leakage prevention, or PII, like they detect PII automatically with things like personally identifiable information. The way they've always worked is that you recognize these little patterns. You try to say, I want to detect if there's social security numbers or driver's licenses or other PII type things. So you look for those patterns. Think about in any enterprise, start to think about what is some of the most sensitive data that might be in their organizations.
I mean, there's so much. There's things like earnings reports, people's salaries. There's things like future product information, roadmap.
Yeah, imagine
we could keep going. Yeah.
Yes, different companies. Like imagine you're a life sciences company and you're about to talk about a new drug that's coming out of trial and the fancy results.
Yeah.
Or you're like a manufacturing company. You're about to release a new product the world is really excited for, and all the details matter.
Yeah.
And imagine that you have some very sensitive M&A announcement that you're going to talk about. Like all of these are really, really sensitive information, like jet engine schematics, like all of these things are like, some people call them like the crown jewels of their company. Like they come in many different forms across many different industries. How many of those things we discussed had PII in them? Maybe one.
Yeah.
So here we are, and like this whole long history of this multiple dozens of years of this industry, and it has never been able to detect something that you would call the most sensitive data. Almost every organization I know of has a list of these. This is what it means to have a data that's sensitive, and in almost every organization I know of, they ask the people knowing this classification level and that they're labeling it in different systems.
So it's been mostly manual, human-driven classification.
Some products like Box have always had in the ability in our system as a shield, and you could go in and you can mark a file to be like, this is client confidential, this is top secret, this is and so on. I mean, there was these classification levels built in, and a lot of products have stuff like that. But you have a lot of access to a lot of sensitive info, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you create some of it. So how many times have you marked the file as sensitive, like you're supposed to?
I'm gonna plead the fifth on that.
I will guess why, and that I think you're probably like the vast majority of other people in organizations, which is that it's kind of intimidating to figure out what a document is. It's kind of a pain to go do it. It's annoying to go always tag these things, and you forget. And that's been the reality of the situation, is that people, even when they're given the responsibility of managing their own data and marking it appropriately, they often don't, because maybe they forget, or maybe they didn't know, or all of these different other reasons. And this is why there's very few sets of data that would be considered sensitive that have that kind of sensitivity label.
Okay, because there's also a lot of pieces of content that probably should have that label that don't necessarily have it.
And then with that data, that you now are in danger of accidentally doing something that you could have otherwise prevented with some rules, like the Box Shield rules, that would prevent you from doing those kind of things.
But isn't that what permissioning solves for?
Permissioning solves for what you have access to, and so you, as an intelligent, somebody who's responsible for this data, have access to it. But you still have different rules associated with what you can do with the data.
Okay.
And then and then we just expect that as somebody can handle those. And then this is where this idea of, if you want to prevent somebody from accidentally doing something, then you can add extra warnings, extra hints, and so on, like the Shield rules in Box, so that they can say things like, don't accidentally share this outside the company, or don't accidentally give access to people who aren't supposed to have it, that kind of thing. And then we can enforce those rules as long as we know that's a sensitive document.
Yeah, and that's actually a really important distinction between permissioning, which is something that it's arguably more commonly known, versus classifying, where that can add that extra layer of security and making sure things don't leak out even. I think, in every context that we've talked about when it comes to the topics of AI and security, it's always been like, oh, okay, AI or agents, they need guardrails. Here's how we should, safeguard around them. But it's really great to see very distinct examples and use cases that open up where AI actually plays a very critical role in helping classify content that previously wasn't even possible, even though the problem's been around for decades, like you were saying.
Absolutely.
Where does AI play a role here?
Yeah. So the underlying challenge, the reason that this has never been solved before is because it's actually really hard, given any general piece of information, like an unstructured document kind of style of any company, is for somebody to say, which classification level should it be? Like there's typically like these like pages of guidance that your company gives you that says, here's the rules. And then you have to kind of deduce each one of them, like, is this part of that or not? And then what are the rules associated with it? And it's actually quite hard. And so like it's to the point where like I think if you the dream of every CISO in this world of like data classification would be to say, what if I could have a person who knows all about these rules just look through every document and classify it? That would be amazing. For security people,
practical, yeah.
It's not practical because it would be incredibly expensive, and it would be like, as many companies have like millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions or maybe even billions of these kind of documents. No reasonable army of people could go do this. But what is an AI agent? It could actually do exactly what we're talking about, where it can actually go look at the rules that any company can make, and it can go through and say, this document can match these rules for this reason. And so, and it can do it across any types of unstructured data. So this is always a challenge. Unstructured data could be anything you could use to describe it, because this is the way that these policies and these companies work. And now you can actually have AI just look at it and be like, yeah, this seems like it matches this one. And it can explain why. This looks like a financial document of an earnings report and it can tell you, like, this seems like what you told me that top secret data was. And so now AI agents can do this kind of thing, whereas before the technology just really didn't exist. So we were stuck with things like, we'll detect only PII, which of course is critical, but it's only one category of this other critical information.
Give me a couple concrete examples of where you see, use cases that it wasn't necessarily possible to classify before AI came along, and now AI can just automate, in a very automatic way do that.
If you have an architecture diagram that talks about the new manufacturing technique of something that your company's working on, right? Like not just an architecture diagram, like some of those are fine, like those don't, but only this type of manufacturer diagram would be sensitive. Like, so that's an example. Also, like maybe you have a bunch of research projects, but only some research projects that fit a certain category of research projects would be something that you could be considered sensitive. Mm-hmm. Deals that discuss like an M&A sequence where you're looking at like due diligence documents and contracts related to something, like, and you say like these are sensitive because it is part of this bigger project. Like all of these things require a decent amount of intelligence. Somebody needs to look down and be like, what is this document? What is it talking about?
A lot of reasoning. You have to really understand what it is.
And that was what has prevented the ability for us to do this automatically for the last 30 years, is that there was really no technology that could actually understand the way that people understood these things, the way that a security professional would look at that information and say that it meets this set of rules. Until now, until the AI models, which naturally understand language, until the AI agents have the ability to go through and do this kind of reasoning and deduce this, and then be able, then in a product like Box, we have the ability to mark these things. And so we have a feature that we call Shield Pro that we're just releasing that does exactly what we're talking about. You give it your rules, and it can go through and it can mark different files according to whatever your rules are. So it can automatically tag them so that they have these extra set of rules applied. Other technologies and other platforms probably will start to do the same thing. But this is a major moment for people who care about such things like our security classifications, because now there's a major new tool in their belt to be able to actually solve this problem for the first time, really, since the history of unstructured data in an enterprise.
That wraps up this episode of AI Explainer series. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. We'll see you next time.